Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our stream today. We got so much exciting stuff left to wrap up from yesterday. We have so many news items still left to cover over for the remainder of the weekend. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Good to have you. Good to have you. Today, we're going to go ahead and discuss a little bit more about the upcoming gang war headed to the Spider Man comics here in the very near future. Plus, we're going to set to explore some interior pages over from DC's upcoming Beast World event. This one is looking like a ton of fun here. Actually, I had a chance before we hopped on stream to check out some of the interior pages. They are gorgeous. Cannot wait to look over them with you. Plus, we're going to go ahead and check in on Marvel's ongoing Avengers series. I have a lot to say. Well, I just recently had a chance to check back through the seventh issue that was published this past week. There's quite a lot to discuss in terms of that series. Elsewhere, we're going to be talking about a comic book that I hope is much anticipated by this audience, and that is, of course, Peach Momoko's upcoming UltimateXmen. I think amid all of the Marvel comics in the Ultimates line, this one is the most subversive just due to the creative team with Peach Momoko alone. Some of the characters introduced are really, really cool. We're going to be going over those characters today and how one of the individuals joining the cast is actually from like a variant cover. So I think that's a really interesting way that Marvel is sort of expanding this Ultimate Comics title featuring the X-Men books. I think it's really interesting too, and I'm sure we'll go ahead and talk much more about this. But I think it's so interesting how the current X-Men publishing line is so robust right now at Marvel with like so many different comics, and Marvel is still putting the green light on the Ultimate X-Men book. So really getting the chance to see how Peach Momoko utilizes characters that are probably going to be in like the core X-Men books, I think is going to be actually really, really interesting. So we're going to have a lot to say in terms of some of those books. Elsewhere, Marvel released a little bit more details about the Timeless one-shot. I am excited to check in on that and to see some alternate versions of Moon Knight and Luke Cage. And I want to thank you for stopping aboard over to our stream. AfroSF, greetings, Arakko Braddock. I am looking forward to Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men. I loved her Strange Miracle Man story in Miracle Man Zero. AfroSF, I actually forgot about that for just a few moments. There's just so many comics published each and every week, but you're right. I think that was a really cool comic book. I mean, that was the last place I ever expected to see Peach Momoko's art. I just think the Miracle Man revival, each time it's published, has been absolutely amazing here. We are just mere seconds away over from our stream. As mentioned earlier, we have some incredibly subversive, some brand new comic book news announcements to talk about. My name is Arakko Braddock, and I want to officially welcome you over to our stream here on this Sunday. Thank you so much for stopping aboard. As we mentioned earlier up at the top of our stream, there's still quite a few big news items that we didn't get to yesterday. This entire stream is going to culminate in the epic new information we got about Ultimate X-Men, so please stick around aboard from us today. And I actually have an article that I found just this morning that we're gonna go ahead and kick off the stream with. Jason Aaron, you might have heard of him. He is an incredible creator over in the space of comic books. Jason Aaron really crafted a run on Thor that really influenced so much of Marvel's publishing line and even spawned the most recent Thor film too, along with his excellent collaborators on that comic book with people like Russell Dauterman. Today, we're actually going to go ahead and flip the script over with Jason Aaron, and we're going to go ahead and learn just a little bit more about what he has in store for his upcoming DC project set to explore the character of Batman. Without further ado, let's go ahead and see Jason Aaron taking on the DC character Dark Knight out of his comfort zone with this exclusive preview of Batman Off-World coming in over from Matthew Aguilar. Jason Aaron and Doug Mahnke are teaming up on a new Batman series, but the Dark Knight isn't staying in his comfort zone for his latest adventure. For Aaron's DC debut, he wanted to take Batman out of his element and showcase his mind and resourcefulness. and both will get a spotlight in Batman Off-World. The series will take place during Batman's early years and shift the landscape from Gotham to the expanses of outer space. Though that's only the tip of the iceberg, comicbook.com had the chance to speak with Aaron all about the new series, and we've even got an exclusive preview for you on the next slide. So I honestly haven't gotten a chance to really dissect this preview for Batman Off-World that we have here. I think this piece is so cool. I've really appreciated so much of what Doug Mahnke has lent over to his DC material. I was such a massive fan of the horror-based visuals he contributed over to the main Green Lantern series with Jeff Johns for like so many years over at the publisher. Really seeing him take on like an alien-based approach with Batman Off-World is, I think, just a great use of some of his talents over on the comic. Let's learn a little bit more about the plot in this next paragraph from comicbook.com. This story takes place earlier on in Batman's career, and though he's already starting to establish himself in Gotham, his reputation doesn't yet extend past Earth. That's something Batman will face head-on, and it takes Bruce far outside of his comfort zone. Yeah, really, it was kind of twofold. One, I felt like I wanted to do a Batman story. It's kind of my lead-off and my first real DC debut. Years ago, I did a Penguin one-shot that was the only thing I've ever written in DC before. Batman was in one panel. I think of that, Aaron said. Yeah, so we're going to get some very early DC work over from Jason Aaron in Batman Off-World. Just to provide a little bit more commentary, I think when we first took a look over at this book, we were sort of commenting on how the protagonist of Batman may limit some of the character interactions in this series. If the protagonist was maybe somebody like Adam Strange, there could potentially be, more discussions, more engaging scenarios. I think it is just a little bit disappointing that Batman is the lead for this story. That being said, though, I'm still very excited at what Mahnke and Aaron have to deliver over on this. Let's learn a little bit more about what they're bringing to Batman Off-World. So I knew I wanted to do a Batman story, and I wanted to do something different, a different kind of Batman story than what we'd seen. And I liked the idea of taking a young Batman, the guy who's just fresh off year one, Aaron said. He's still pretty much the Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli Batman, a guy who's just starting to get his arms around Gotham and figure out what he's doing and how to take control of the city sort of street by street, alley by alley. And again here, I just wanted to quickly say that utilizing the Batman Year One version of the character is a great way to sort of make your Batman a little bit more vulnerable, to make the stakes present in the story have a little bit more tension over in the comic book. Let's see what else Jason Aaron's cooking up for Batman Off-World. And then suddenly he runs up against something that he is wholly unprepared for. He spent years traveling the Earth, learning everything he thought he needed to know to fight to protect Gotham. And then he finds out there's a whole universe of threats out there that he knows absolutely nothing about. So this young Batman has to go out to space for the first time and start fighting the kinds of forces he had no idea even existed. There's also a personal aspect to this story for Aaron. He wanted his DC debut to reflect some of the characters and stories that drew him to comics during his childhood. That part of it, to tell a cool Batman story, but the other part of it, the more personal part of it, is I look at this as my DC debut. I wanted to do something that sort of spoke to comics from my childhood that just got me reading DC for the first time. Really, DC was my gateway into comics, period. Issues of World's Finest and Adventure Comics, with those big thick ones that gave you stories about Hawkman, Green Arrow and Flash, and Superman and Batman. Everybody, Aaron said. Those were the first books I ever picked up, and that led me to New Teen Titans. Atari Force was big for me, which is a book I kind of debuted right around the time I was. It was the first #1 issue I saw in the spinner rack and loved. So very interesting discussion stemming over here from Jason Aaron. I think in terms of DC Comics, oftentimes when I'm trying to get, some of my friends into the world of Marvel and DC, I feel like oftentimes they're really more attracted to the Marvel titles. And I think this is probably due in part to some of the MCU movies being a lot more popular nowadays. But I do find it interesting that among, some younger readers in my contemporary here, it feels like the ceiling to get into DC Comics is a little bit bigger due to some of the unfamiliarity with the core cast of DC heroes. Let's go ahead and check out the main cover over on Batman Offworld by Doug Mahnke. I think this is actually the first time I've seen the official logo over for this series. I think DC has been getting a little bit more creative in terms of the logos. There was some really cool logos over for the recent Amazon's Attack series too. Sometimes I feel like the cover art is actually battling against some of the trade design over for the series, so I'm glad that that isn't the case over for Batman Offworld. And again, I think all the line that Doug Mahnke renders over on the cover just gives this comic a really epic sensibility to it too. We have another cover coming in here from Leslie Lyrics. Also think this one is quite striking here, showing the more alien aspects over in this Batman Offworld comic. And of course, we have the comic book legend, the DC master David Finch here, giving us very iconic looking Batman cover with some elements that don't look like they have to do with the sort of outer space based premise of the series. Yeah, absolutely love this battle worn Batman over on the Ben Oliver cover of the issue. Pete Woods. We have a really fantastic Pete Woods cover. When I first looked at this, I almost thought it was Raphael Albuquerque. I think the amount of shadow used there is just a great way to tease out some of the darker elements inherent over on the cover. And we have just a black and white cover over from Doug Mahnke. Really am appreciating this kind of smaller version of the logo too. And we already had the chance to go ahead and take a look at this preview image. Really like how this image really kind of bolsters the creative team behind Batman Offworld. And look at that, we even have some interior pages showing some of the alien-based scenarios Batman is experiencing. The way he's utilizing this sci-fi-esque chainsaw, I think, is a very interesting story scenario to kick off this title. Really like how the credits are aligned over on this preview here too. Once again, we get a big sci-fi scenario over for Batman alongside some narration. Yeah, really am appreciating some of the bold and dynamic line over from Mahnke. I feel like it's just going to make so many tense scenarios for Batman too here. All right, so that was the end of our preview over for Batman Offworld. I think there's a lot to be excited about in terms of this series, just from the visuals alone here. Now, I want to switch gears and explore some upcoming new Marvel titles, especially this one, which is set to reintroduce the aspects of the Daredevil property over from the perspective of the Elektra character. One interesting thing about Daredevil's current Marvel ongoing series is that Matt Murdock is currently a priest watching over the St. Nicholas Youth Home. And then in the background, we have Elektra Nachos serving as Marvel's Daredevil. Let's go ahead and take a sneak preview over into this Gang War crossover, really fleshing out Elektra's time as the Daredevil. Courtesy of Marvel Comics, Adventures in Poor Taste can share an unlettered preview of Daredevil Gang War 1. Written by Erica Schultz with art by Sergio Davila, this issue features Elektra, a former assassin turned Daredevil. She spars with not one, but two baddies. This one coming in from David Brooke on Adventures in Poor Taste. The heat is on in Hell's Kitchen. Elektra Nachos, a former assassin turned Daredevil, has been recruited by Spider-Man to stop New York City from tearing itself apart as every mobster and supervillain in town go to war. Elektra is the only thing standing in the way of Hell's Kitchen's annihilation at the hands of a dangerous new gang, the Heat, whose violent schemes from the pages of Daredevil unfolds. So this series, once again, written by Schultz, featuring art from Sergio Davila. We have inks from Sean Parsons and colors from CC De La Cruz. The letters are from VC's Clayton Cowles here too. I see this cover is... and I see this cover over for Daredevil Gang War is actually signed over from Sergio Davila too. Really like the composition and also the way that Elektra's hair is flowing all across this cover here. Yeah, I think that some of the art is just so incredibly dynamic. And also, this upcoming gang war storyline is really going to set a violent narrative towards these streets of New York City in the pages of Spider Man. I think it's so interesting how some of the Marvel Knights characters are starting to assemble in their various tie in comic book series. Getting the chance to see Daredevil's electric character join in on the gang war, I think, is also going to be a lot of fun here. Really appreciate how this page is laid out with this larger rectangular panel of Elektra as Daredevil over in the background. And on this next page, we're introduced to a villain over in the title here. I was unable to determine who this villain was. If anybody else knows, I'd be really curious to hear your responses over in chat. And in some of the final pages, we're also introduced to yet another Daredevil-esque villain. This is actually the character of Leland Owsley, the Owl. Once again, I just think the amount of panels on the page is really striking. Some of the details over in the visuals almost remind me of what Steven Segovia has lent to the Daredevil property. And I love the juxtaposition of the fact that the main Daredevil series is kind of focused on watching Matt Murdock as Daredevil protect the St. Nicholas Youth Home, while we really have this Elektra-based Daredevil story trying to fight off some of the villains over from the streets of New York. Chillmonger, really appreciate you coming in here in the chat. According to Chillmonger, that villain is L Extra. I'm not sure if that is actually a joke or not, but think it's funny either way here. Yeah, I just really wanted to take a brief look at seeing what Elektra's interpretation of the gang war is here as Daredevil. Really think that the artwork from Sergio Davila over in this interior issue and on the cover is really striking. Also, I think that Erica Schultz has written some really good Spider-Man based material over with Hallows Eve, especially in that core main Hallows Eve series here. Yeah, I'm really excited about the potential of the Marvel Knights characters really assembling in the Marvel Universe to help Spider-Man fight off the gang war. All right, and we are going to go ahead and shoot into another really exciting news story here. This one is actually set to explore another aspect of the Marvel Universe that I want to touch on in a lot more depth here. Marvel has been teasing a brand new Thanos comic book series. And alongside it, they're also set to bring in a new group of Illuminati-based heroes. We have a little bit more of an exploration of a preview for that series, and we even have some brand new interiors coming in directly over from comicbook.com. Let's go ahead and explore this brand new Thanos book coming in from Christopher Cantwell. Thanos levels a major US city in his return to the Marvel Universe. Comicbook.com has the exclusive preview of Marvel's new Thanos solo series. A preview of Marvel's new Thanos solo series features the Mad Titan ripping a city right through its resting place. Thanos loomed large over the Marvel Cinematic Universe during the Infinity Saga, victorious in his collection of the Infinity Stones in Avengers Infinity War, and being taken down by Earth's mightiest heroes in Avengers Endgame. Let's see here. Thanos has been off the board and presumed dead in the comics after a run-in with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's back scarier than ever. The city of Fresno, California finds out firsthand the level of destruction Thanos can inflict. I think author Christopher Cantwell wrote such an amazing Iron Man comic book series, and I was so interested to see what kind of pathos he would lend over to the character of Thanos. In some recent Thanos comic books too, I think there's been a really interesting cosmic element brought out to this character. Christopher Cantwell is really strong at writing characters that have a dark, oblique background. And the interior pages for this series, I think, really showcase that sense of really strong ambition that Thanos has too, as he puts the city of Fresno, California in an energy bubble and starts to sort of raise it up here. We have some really interesting preview pages coming in from Christopher Cantwell and Luca Pizzari that we're going to preview in just a few moments. Let's see here. So comicbook.com has the exclusive preview for Thanos. This issue shows Thanos orbiting Earth in a massive spacecraft that has the power to put Fresno in an energy bubble and lift it off the ground, pulling it to the ship via a tracker beam. There's nothing but chaos on the streets of Fresno, with drivers falling to their deaths as the roads are ripped apart beneath them. Our narrator is a citizen who is passed out in the middle of a vitamin aisle in the convenience store, who ponders the meaning of dying alone. Of course, death is something Thanos has been obsessed with in the past, though he's since moved on to other vices. And yeah, I really do think Christopher Cantwell really finds this interesting juxtaposition in humor, really showcasing where this tourist is as well as Thanos is. Once again, here we will explore that in just a few moments. Chris Cantwell will write the new Marvel Comics miniseries starring Thanos, having previously written Iron Man and another major Marvel series, Doctor Doom. Lucas Pizzari, who worked on the recent X-Men Before the Fall Heralds of the Apocalypse one-shot, will draw all 4 issues of the series. I want to back up here because the more the time goes by, the more important to continuity that X-Men Before the Fall Heralds of Apocalypse one-shot really starts to become over in the core Marvel universe here. If you're a big X-Men fan and you haven't checked that out, especially if you're reading X-Men Red, really encourage you to go back and check that one out in particular. Per Marvel's synopsis for the Thanos series, the saga will follow Thanos as he rockets to Earth from the darkest depths of the cosmos to undertake his most ambitious conquest yet. The only ones that can quell his passionate fury is a new Illuminati. Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange, and Iron Man have reunited to guide the superhuman world from the shadows, and joining this new incarnation are Emma Frost and Blue Marvel. I think it's really interesting how Marvel is expanding the Illuminati. I think the Illuminati just creates this interesting moral tension among Marvel's characters because these are individuals who have to make those hard decisions. Blue Marvel, really great character who could contribute more to Marvel continuity if more creators used him. I've also really appreciated the expansion of Emma Frost, not only in Marvel's X-Men comic books, but also with the Iron Man comic. Really seeing more Marvel Universe characters interact with Emma has been a ton of fun, especially in regards to Kingpin. So I'm really hoping that this will open up more Emma Frost over in the Marvel Universe. Nobody Except Me says, seems like a downgrade, no. Why would Thanos just destroy a random Cali city? I've been thinking about that too. And I don't really see any exploration of that because it seems like this move that he makes also draws the ire of the new Illuminati, which is going to be really hard for Thanos to take down. You know, Thanos has been foiled by Marvel's heroes time and time again here. Let's see if we can learn anything else about Marvel's plans in this preview or in the actual interior pages of the issue. This cabal composed of Marvel's greatest minds have wasted no time in sharing a secret that will shatter the heavens and provoke Thanos' deadly wrath like never before. Thanos versus the Illuminati, the Mad Titan descends upon Earth to retrieve something he has lost, and the Illuminati must band together to stop him because they're the ones who hid it from him. Nobody Except Me. The Illuminati stuff sounds interesting, though. I agree with you about Blue Marvel and Emma Frost. Good. Good to have people who agree with me. Good to have like minds over in our chat here. I've had the honor and joy of writing some of Marvel's greatest villains, so you can imagine how excited I am to not only tackle the Mad Titan himself, but pit him against one of the most powerful brains and fists out there. This is the latest lineup of the Illuminati, Cantwell said when Thanos was announced, but I think folks will find the backdrop of this story quite unexpected, mischievously funny, and heartbreakingly human. For what has drawn Thanos back screaming into the universe is a singular pain and desire for connection that he believes only one essence in existence and non-existence can give him. While this is being in turn grappling with some deeper questions about where they are and who they want to be. Plus, Thanos hotwires a pickup truck. I could tell you right from even reading the first panel description that this book was going to be something else, Pizzari shared. I'd never even met Chris before, and yet it's like he wrote this book reading my mind. There are a lot of characters I've always wanted to try my hand on. Thanos is, of course, unbelievably fun to draw. I'm constantly telling myself to make him bigger and bigger. All right, so we have an exclusive preview of Thanos that I've been teasing relentlessly for the past couple moments that we're going to look into. And also, it looks like this issue is set to go on sale Wednesday, November 8th. I'm really going to try and have some coverage on this one because I feel like there's going to be some big implications of this, if not only due to the fact that we're setting up a new Illuminati. All right, let's go ahead and explore some of our interior pages. Let's quickly pause this ad, get all of the lovely comicbook.com ads off the screen here. Of course, this issue written by Cantwell, illustrated by Pizzari. We have colors from Ruth Redmond and letters from VC's Corey Petit's, cover from Lionel Francis Yu and Sonny Go. I actually do want to read this recap text. If nothing else, that I'm interested in what story elements Marvel's going to tease out that we might see from the interior pages. Thanos is called the Mad Titan, an eternal of immense strength, intellect, ambition, and bloodthirst. Once upon a time, he sought the heart of the goddess Death and used the Infinity Gauntlet to erase half the universe's population to win her love. But the pair split by the time Thanos battled the Guardians of the Galaxy, who shot him into a black hole. Thanos has been missing and presumed dead ever since, until now. All right, well, I like that preview. I don't really think it shared any additional insight here, but still good to learn where Thanos is and what he's been up to over in the Marvel Universe. I really think Luca Pizzari is such a talented and expressive artist. The way this page is framed, once again, very, very subversive, with some of our tourists in the poor city of Fresno trying to trying to cross a bridge, but ends up getting kind of caught over in the rubble from the background of the page here. Also, really have to hand it to Luca Pizzari for all of the different pieces of detail and architecture in the background. The way that movement is depicted on the page here is quite striking. I really like all of these sound effects layered on in the background too. And then on the next page, we get a preview of Thanos taking the city up in that energy bubble we mentioned earlier. Some of the narration over from the mysterious character introduced towards the last couple pages is a very artistic way for Christopher Cantwell to write this sequence over in the issue. And I do think this is a really subtle way to capture these images. When I first looked through these preview pages, I had absolutely no idea what was going on until I got some more context from this excellent comicbook.com article. Once again, seeing the destruction of Thanos rising the city up in the energy bubble, captured in all these different perspectives from Luca Pizzari's art, I think is quite staggering over in the issue. I love how thoughtful some of these pages are designed, with uses of negative space and very interestingly designed panels in the series. This last page is very, very cool as we finally get introduced to this character in the vitamin aisle, serving as the narrator for the series. Not sure if we've seen her before in the Marvel Universe, but I do think the introduction and some of these first preview pages just do a great job setting up the main intrigue of the series. And it looks like I lied earlier, we have yet one final preview page teasing the fact that Thanos is actually showing up in this story and that he is indeed responsible for some of these events. And we also get the really dark juxtaposition of that woman over in the vitamin aisle saying, "I will die alone, I will die alone." This is actually what I would expect from a preview of a Thanos story from Christopher Cantwell. A lot of times he writes really, really dark scenarios for these various characters, but I think the way he's kind of set up this story, at least from these first couple pages, is really, really fascinating here. Nobody Except Me says, "I'm guessing what he needs is under the city. Hope it's not Infinity Stones again, but hopefully it's a good story. How long has it been since Gamora killed him? It's been a while since Infinity Wars, huh? Indeed, indeed it has. But I do think that this is just a really fascinating way to open up some of these Marvel plot threads for an upcoming Thanos tale. And I'm very interested at what Chris Cantwell has in store alongside Luca Pizzari for this new Thanos miniseries. We'll be covering this as soon as it releases over on November 8th. I hope you're as excited as I am to learn a little bit more about this upcoming series. We have a ridiculously epic comic book preview to go ahead and get into. There's actually a big DC Comics event coming in really, really soon. This one is very, very exciting because it features a team of DC Comics heroes that the publisher has really been trying to bolster, especially over the past couple months. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Teen Titans, or excuse me, they're not Teen Titans anymore. They are the Titans, and this is their upcoming Beast World storyline. DC Comics has released a preview of the upcoming Beast World crossover, which launches with Titans Beast World 1 on November 28th. This one is coming in over from David Brooke on Adventures in Poor Taste. You are going to be amazed when you see some of these preview pages from Ivan Heiss and Danny Miki. An ancient evil is threatening the future of the DC Universe, and the Titans, led by a transformed Garfield Logan, are all that stand in the way. This series is by Tom Taylor, Heiss, and Miki, plus tie-in one-shots showing the impact on the iconic cities populating the DC Universe. DC promises this is an event that will have significant ramifications for DC's publishing plans in 2024. All right, so we have all this information here. What exactly is Titans Beast World #1 about? The Necrostar, a godlike being with a thirst for conquest, is awakened in the Titans, along with the rest of the superheroes of the DC Universe team up to fight this horrible threat. Garfield Logan, aka Beast Boy, comes up with an unexpected solution, fighting fire with fire as he transforms into the only thing that can take on a giant star-shaped cosmic creature. The first issue features a main cover from Ivan Heiss, Danny Miki, and Brad Anderson. Here it is right here. I love the premise for this Titans Beast World story, really showing a platform for Beast Boy to rise up and stop these characters directly. Frankly, I also think the reason why you should be this excited about the Titans Beast World story is just the fact that the characterization for the main series has been so good. It feels like Tom Taylor has really thoughtfully wrote the character dynamics between the relationship with people like Raven and Beast Boy. I think the way that Tom Taylor has approached some of the writing over with Wally and Linda in the book has been tremendous. I've loved the material with Tempest so far, and I feel like Tom Taylor and probably some of his collaborators had this storyline in mind as they were setting up the Titans comic, and have really produced so many comics in the lead up over to that series. As mentioned earlier too, I've already gotten the chance to take a look at some of these preview pages too, and I think some of the framing and the way that these scenes are captured from Ivan Heiss and Danny Miki and Brad Anderson are just so beautiful. Without further ado, let's preview some of these interior pages. So here's a look over at what I believe is Beast Boy, who is transformed into this starfish-shaped creature in order to help out some of his Titans collaborators here over in space. The way this image is captured here with this impressive sense of scale, showing a very small cyborg in the background, is just beautiful. And it looks like this next page is the lead up to that, as we have some of our Titans characters discussing these big decisions and ramifications. The way Ivan Heiss is able to depict Cyborg over on this page with his energy blast is stunning. The panel bleeds between Raven and Beast Boy here look really beautiful. And I love this really kind of exaggerated and tense expression over for Nightwing too. This is such an epic and iconic DC page here with Beast Boy and Raven giving a really kind of palpable kiss as they sort of go off into battle within these next couple panels. Yeah, really think all of the detail over on the faces and the amount of shading really brings out this interesting sense of characterization in the book. In the main Titan series, we've gotten art from Nicholas Scott. Between Nicholas Scott and Yvonne Heiss, these are like the best artists that DC have right now. I'd also really like to see Riccardo Federici contribute over on the Titans book. I think he would really fall in line with Nicholas Scott and Yvonne Heiss too. Wow, look at that double page spread here, showing this kind of beast oriented threat. And it looks like Starfire, we have Wonder Girl and Cyborg responding to the threat out in space, too. Once again, just all the rubble captured here in the sense of detail from Yvonne Heiss, really striking. Really cool bleeds over with Beast Boy and Batman on the page following here. We have a glimpse at some Titans characters, as well as Mr. Terrific. I've actually really liked how Mr. Terrific has been showing up in more books across the DC universe. Also, I think the way that Mr. Terrific has been interacting with Wally in the main Flash comic book has really been a lot of fun. They have an interesting dynamic with each other, and I never know if they're going to both be in agreement or if they're going to be fighting against each other, depending on the scene. Really loving what Cy Spurrier has done over on that book, alongside Mike Deodato Jr. Okay, yeah, this page, very, very cool. I believe what this is Garfield Logan turning into this character in order to battle that Necrostar character that we mentioned earlier. I may have gotten the name wrong there, but I think this page is just so beautiful, so striking here. Once again, the amount of detail and all the images depicted in this transformation is absolutely horrific and shows why this is just an absolutely world-class DC Comics art team. Also, seeing this really tense expression of Raven, reacting to the character she loves, ended up transformed, and that horrific aberration is just very captivating here. Also appreciating some of Nightwing and Batman's really kind of understated reactions in comparison to Raven here. Once again, this is a really beautiful, really iconic page that's showing me that the creative team and DC Comics are actually really taking Beast World very seriously. The Black Adam transformation into the Beast character. Also, another beautiful page with so much detail from our art team here. I've really talked about how every single page is world class. I think this one is absolutely no exception. Very impressed with what the art team, as well as Tom Taylor, are bringing over to this Beast World story. We're going to have some coverage as it starts to debut. I'm also really hoping that this book is going to have a couple things in common with Lazarus Planet. I love the way that series kind of introduced the status quo and toward the DC universe. It feels like right now the makeup of DC is oriented to check in on city to city as the different events are impacted. So I think we're going to have a really similar flow over to this upcoming series here. All right, well, that was our preview of the Titans Beast World comic book series, and we will be back to cover this series as soon as it debuts over on November 28th. I want to have a bigger discussion with you right now about one of Marvel's ongoing series that has been frustrating me to absolutely no end, and that is Marvel's Core Avengers series. I was so excited for this to debut. I feel like we were hyping it up relentlessly over on our stream, but I think some of the plotting and the most recent issues has started to weigh the series down. This one written over from Judd McKay, featuring art from CF Via. Basically, the big reason why I'm so disappointed is because there's this really interesting threat over for the Avengers that was set up as a prelude to this series, where an adversary for Kang called Murden in the Twilight Court spawned an offensive threat that was so kind of harrowing over to Kang that it left him, in a coma and actually needed him to be hospitalized. I think that was such an intriguing way to set up this Avengers series, and I've been waiting just month after month for the Avengers to finally go up against these characters, but they keep facing other threats like the biblically themed Ashen Combine, or some of the adversaries we see in this series, and the actual plot of the comic book doesn't seem to develop much farther. It looks like in Avengers issue 8, we are actually going to see some of the fight between the Avengers and Murden in the Twilight Court, but issue 7 felt like yet another stopgap in the way to the story that I actually want to read in this series. Let's go ahead and explore the preview over for Avengers 7, and I also want to read just a little bit of the review over from David Brooke. Both these articles are sourced from Adventures in Poor Taste. Thank you so much for posting these articles here. It's been nearly a year since Timeless teased a new super team that'll tango with the Avengers, and that story begins this week in Avengers 7. The Twilight Court has beef with Kang, and given the events of this issue, they have to go through the Avengers to get him. That and Jed MacKay and CF Via kick off their Twilight Dreaming story arc with a twisty opener. This issue is as epic as they come, dropping readers into a battle that the Avengers have already lost, but they won't quit. Dressed in costumes from the past, it's disorienting. The third page has the Scarlet Witch crying over a dead Vision, while most of the team is nearly spent. Most of the issue is a guessing game, from how the heroes got here to who speaks in the captions. It makes for a compelling payoff with the cliffhanger, although it's a big gamble to hang your story arc on an entire first issue teaser. Via gets to go off on art with big, epic kaiju dropping buildings and the heroes going full tilt with their powers. As seen in previous issues, MacKay has a knack for drawing you into each hero's attack, giving them a chance to shine. Via gets to show each hero making their best finishing move, so to speak, and it's at once exciting and dramatically crushing. The team is losing, and V makes you feel it. All right, very quickly, I just wanted to say here that some of CFV's art across Avengers 7 is absolutely gorgeous. I do think that a lot of what he's contributed to the series has just been monumental here, and it's really been the overall pacing in the main Avengers book that started to feel a little bit slowed down over in this tale. I definitely think that Avengers is probably going to read much better in a trade, but for the past months, all the way spanning back to a year, I have really been waiting for our team to fight back against Murden. There's actually a really big premise for the issue that's unveiled as soon as the storyline begins to end here, and then we finally get the setup that the upcoming issues of Avengers are really going to feature this big and climactic battle. I just wish it didn't take this long to get here. So it looks like Adventures in Poor Taste was much more positive on Avengers issue 7. They actually gave it an 8.5 out of 10. The Avengers 7 comes out of the gate swinging, introducing a new threat while dropping readers in the middle of a battle. The series continues to surprise with elements that make it feel fresh while never losing sight of the dynamic heroes that make up the world's greatest superhero team. Yeah, I don't really see them saying anything about the greater pacing of the series. Maybe they just have a different interpretation of the past couple Avengers issues than I have. For some of the negatives, they write the entire issue is kind of a long tease. That directly hints, I think, at some of what I'm saying in terms of the pacing. They also say the art can be a bit lacking in detail at times. As for the positives, exciting issue that drops you into the action. Agreed with that. Some interesting questions keep you turning the pages, like why are they dressed like that? And there's an intriguing cliffhanger that kicks off a story we've been waiting a year for. I would say that this is a very intense negative as opposed to a positive for this upcoming Avengers story. But I have to admit, it does, leave me a little bit, essentially kind of perplexed here, because while I do think this issue was yet another piece of filler on the lead up to so many Avengers issues that were so full of filler, at least this issue does have a cool cliffhanger leading to the appearance for Murden and the Twilight Court. Overall, though, I would say this Avengers series is probably heading towards a really interesting story conflict in future issues. It just took maybe a little bit too long to get here. I hope you enjoyed our exploration over for Avengers 7, along with some feedback on where I'd really like to see this series go from here. Let's go ahead and touch on the first steps of some ramifications over for the Ultimate Universe at Marvel. Now, the Ultimate Universe book that came out this past week was stuffed with so many different revelations here. Another piece over in this Ultimate series that's been lingering just in the background is some of the lead up over to Ultimate Black Panther. Let's go ahead and explore this article from comicbook.com coming in over from Kofi Outlaw. Marvel teases a Black Panther vs. Moon Knight war in new Ultimate Universe. Chillmonger says the Avengers should have the hype Ultimate Universe has. Maybe it can get there in time. I feel like they just need to build up to a really epic confrontation here. The new Ultimate Universe teases a major war brewing between the alternate versions of Black Panther and Moon Knight. Marvel is teasing Black Panther and Moon Knight go into war in the new Ultimate Universe. Writer Jonathan Hickman has reshaped the Ultimate Universe into one of Reed Richards' nefarious variant the Maker has cultivated according to his designs of fate. In this rewritten version of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, there's already been a set of catastrophic events that have claimed the lives of major Marvel characters. And an even bigger war seems to be on the horizon, with teases of Black Panther and Moon Knight being at the center. One of my favorite parts of this past Wednesday's issue of Ultimate Universe was the kind of secret rulers of the world explored back over from Ultimate Invasion, really getting to see some of these character interactions in the background of Ultimate Universe was really, really thrilling. In the new Ultimate Universe 1, Hickman provides an epilogue section that measures world events after the Maker's Council of Illuminati-style heroes and villains pulls a false flag move of annihilating part of New York City with Stark installed satellites, blaming Tony Stark for the act. The civil unrest that starts around the world extends to Africa, which is known as the Upper and Lower Kingdoms, and ruled by the followers of the sun god Ra and moon god Khonshu, respectively. The avatars of both gods now combine to become this universe's version of Moon Knight, who enforces their rule of the region. I always appreciated when the Ultimate Universe really takes on its own sense of continuity. I feel like the Upper and Lower Kingdoms is just a great way to tease out and expand the continuity for Ultimate Marvel. As a newscaster describes an outbreak of regional fighting and perhaps open insurgents in the Upper and Lower Kingdoms, we get a brief shot of Black Panther's silhouette against a green-lit sky with the moon insignia partially visible in the distance. The new Hickman Ultimate Universe already has an Ultimate Black Panther series coming out February 2024 from the creative team of Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli. Ultimate Universe 1 has set the stage for this new Ultimate Universe line to unfold across various books, and the teaser for Ultimate Black Panther seems very clear. Wakanda will not bend Ra and Khonshu and their Moon Knights. Here's the synopsis for the new Black Panther series. The new Ultimate Black Panther. In the wake of Ultimate Invasion, Khonshu and Ra the Force, known together as Moon Knight, are seeking to expand their brutal control of the continent of Africa. In response, the lone bulwark against them, the isolated nation of Wakanda, will send forth its champion, its king, the Black Panther. From the creative minds of Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli comes a bold new take on the world of Black Panther and Wakanda. I think this series has so much potential. Out of all the Ultimate books so far, I feel like this is the one that we know the least about. At least we know how it connects over to the greater Marvel Universe now with the Upper and Lower Kingdoms, especially with that continuity of Africa and where that Moon Knight series is headed. But it looks like this comic book is actually quite a ways away here. We aren't set to get this one released until February, so that's still just a few months out over at the publisher. You know, one more interesting thing to say about this is in the lead up over to Ultimate Black Panther, it's also possible that we could see some new Marvel continuity editions too. So this is one that we'll definitely keep an eye out for and see if there's going to be any new developments over in the lead up to Ultimate Black Panther over in February. All right, let's go ahead and continue the intrigue of Marvel's Ultimate Universe with another article talking about a revelation over an Ultimate Universe that I may have missed. Ultimate Universe 1 sets up the rise of hundreds of new Ultimate Marvel heroes. Marvel's new Ultimate Universe already has hundreds of heroes. We just haven't met them yet. This one coming in from George Marston over on newsarama.com. Writer Jonathan Hickman's new Marvel Universe has officially launched, and while readers previously got some hints from Marvel about what's in store, with some particularly interesting news about the Ultimate Spider-Man already teased by the publisher. All right, so we're going to be talking spoilers over for Ultimate Universe number 1, and we're going to be talking about a revelation regarding the birth of some brand new heroes. Let's read a little bit more about it here. Ultimate Universe 1 by Hickman and Caselli, color artist David Curiel, and letterer Joe Caramagna dropped some big bombshells about Earth 6160 and how the maker manipulated its history to prevent the rise of many of its variants of many of Marvel's biggest heroes. As seen in Ultimate Invasion 1, when the Maker captures the spider that would have bitten Peter Parker as a teenager before it can bestow him with his vaunted spider powers. He prevents Peter from becoming Spider-Man likewise. As explained in Ultimate Universe 1, he prevented Thor from becoming King of Asgard and ensured Loki would take the throne instead. Yeah, really preventing Thor from becoming King of Asgard was a very strong way to kick off Ultimate Universe and was one of the elements that actually led Thor to joining the new team of Ultimate characters too. It turns out the Maker amassed a huge collection of items and objects that would have created literally hundreds of superhumans on Earth 6160 without his intervention. Basically, the entire superhuman population of Earth 6160. Instead, only a few superhumans have arisen under the direct design of the Maker, most of whom are part of his secret cabal of international heroes who manipulate world affairs in accordance with the Maker's goals. I really love that idea with the kind of secret rulers of the world operating in the shadows. It almost feels like there's a dark version of the Illuminati over in the Marvel Universe that are secretly loyal over to the character of the Maker. Now, following the Maker being trapped in a time stasis field along with the city, his personal floating headquarters, Teen Tony Stark, Reed Richards, Thor, and Sif break into a vault where the Maker keeps all the superhuman origins he prevented. Yeah, this is such a great element of Ultimate Universe. So interesting seeing some of our Ultimate characters directly react to the twisted ways the Maker tried to stop an Ultimate uprising happening that he was ultimately unsuccessful in doing in the last issue of Ultimate Invasion here too. Though it seems at first they'll be able to get away clean, the Earth 6160 Captain Britain arrives, stabbing Thor with his magic sword. Thor, critically wounded, uses the last of his strength to teleport his allies and the storage tanks away with the power of Mjolnir. As Reed and Tony try to save Thor, Captain Britain returns to the Maker's other superhuman minions, where they all resolve that to attack New York City using a Stark satellite weapon, blaming Tony and labeling him a terrorist. I like this aspect too. I feel like it set up some greater political ramifications over for this new Ultimate Marvel Universe team. At the last moment, just before the satellite launches a massive blast at the city, Tony and Reed hint at an unseen contingency plan to avert the disaster. But the Maker's minions' plan still appears successful. The blast seems to level several blocks, with thousands of people believed dead as a result, including Norman Osborn and May Parker, among many others. Yeah, I'm not sure how that development is going to shake out in the core Ultimate Spider-Man book coming soon. However, despite their apparent contingency plan going unseen, it's somewhat hinted that Reed, Tony, Thor, and Sif, and the actual people that the city managed to somehow show escape, leaving only a smoking crater behind. Oddly, that's not unlike the current main Fantastic Four run, where the Baxter Building and its inhabitants, as well as everyone who was in a certain radius, were teleported into a pocket universe by Reed Richard in order to save them from an ultimate invasion. My guess as to why this Fantastic Four run would be a little bit different as opposed to Ultimate Universe is that this is probably more temporary than what we're going to see in Ultimate Universe. Probably some of these political ramifications from this Ultimates issue are really going to linger for quite some time. Still, though, that said, it remains to be seen how or if the Earth 6160 Tony and the rest will make it out of there. Though it has also been heavily implied that Tony is also the Earth 6160 King, so we're guessing that there's an unseen contingency plan may have come through after all. I know we've discussed this too about Tony Stark being the Earth 6160 Kang, especially because he's taken on the guise of the Iron Lad character. However, I think it's just a little bit too obvious, and my guess here is that Jonathan Hickman is going to turn left and maybe keep Tony as a heroic character. I would really like to see that plot development in particular. We're also assuming that at least the superhero origins will survive, since the Earth 6160 Spider-Man will apparently be an adult Peter Parker who is married to Mary Jane Watson with 2 kids, where he gets his powers thanks to the Maker diverting the spider when he was a teenager. We'll find out more when Ultimate Spider-Man #1 kicks off the new Ultimate Comics line in January. All right, so I think this gives us an idea of where we can expect to see the Ultimate Universe next, with Ultimate Spider-Man 1 in January. And we also covered how we have Ultimate Black Panther over in February from Brian Hill too. So we've touched on a couple different corners of the Ultimate Universe. Let's go ahead and see what the publisher has in store for one of my most anticipated upcoming Marvel Ultimate titles. Without further ado here, let's go ahead and explore some new details over on Peach Momoko's incredibly epic Ultimate X-Men issue 1. This was published November 1st over from Marvel.com. Get a first look at Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men, see what the new Ultimate Universe holds for mutant kind in new design sheets and a special prelude story for Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men issue 1 on sale in March. And there you go. It looks like Marvel is releasing each of these Ultimate books just month by month by month. So it starts with Ultimate Spider-Man January, Black Panther in February, Ultimate X-Men in March. Marvel Comics threw open the doors of its new Ultimate Universe today, in today's Ultimate Universe 1, where Jonathan Hickman and Stefano Caselli laid the foundation for an array of new Ultimate titles, including Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men. Launching in March, Ultimate X-Men will see the visionary writer and artist introduce a new generation of X-Men for the bold universe Hickman created. In Ultimate Universe 1, readers got a glimpse of Momoko's take on mutant kind in a special 2-page Ultimate X-Men prelude story. Check out that story right now, along with never-before-seen design sheets for 2 of the series' stars, a new version of the young X-Men Armor and May Storm. Armor and May Storm, 2 really interesting subversive characters set to debut in this Ultimate X-Men book. And we're going to have some coverage on both of those individuals in just a few moments here. Hisako Ichiki is a teenage girl who just wants to live in a normal life, go to school, hang out with her friends, ignore the political strife broiling over the events of Ultimate Invasion. But life has other plans for her. In Japan, urban legends have sprung to life and brought some unusual new powers with them. Meet Armor, May Storm, and a group of new Ultimate X-Men, the likes of which you've never seen before. So regarding some of Peach Momoko's past work in the Marvel Universe, I've had the chance to check out her Demon Days comics in the past, and I've always been mystified with the way that some of her writing really introduces like Japanese folklore over on the page and melds it with Marvel Universe continuity. Plus, I think the more manga-influenced approach that she lends to the art is just absolutely phenomenal here. I think the composition of some of her pages are really, really cool. It seems like she's always been fascinated by demons or these yokai characters, and the way they're visually adapted onto the page is just striking. Also, the logo design over for the Ultimate X-Men is just really, really epic, contributing so much additional texture over to the cover with this bleed as well here. Also, the kind of white hues separating the visuals from the rest of the cover are just so bold and show off that really epic design that Marvel is lending towards some new covers that we've seen lately. Fans will recognize Maystorm from Peach Momoko's X-Men 27 Champions variant cover. Let's go ahead and get that Champions variant cover up on the screen here, showing the first appearance of the character of Maystorm. This was a character who was really just supposed to be designed only for this variant cover, but it looks like Peach Momoko really responded to this individual and actually managed to go ahead and get her inside the pages of Ultimate X-Men. The new Champions variant covers saw the industry's leading talent create all new heroes based on Marvel icons. Momoko's take on his Storm protege marks the first new champion to make the exciting leap to the pages of a comic. I was very surprised, excited, and happy that Marvel allowed me to introduce Maystorm in Ultimate X-Men, Momoko said. She was made only for the new Champions variant cover program. I really liked her design and wanted to tell her story, but I didn't think I would get the opportunity this fast. Once again, Ultimate X-Men issue 1 is written, illustrated, and even the cover for the issue is all created over from Peach Momoko. And we're actually going to go ahead and take a look at some of the preview pages for the issue 2. As we teased in the cover, some of the preview pages for Ultimate X-Men were actually featured over in the Ultimate Universe issue. All right, so we now have some of these preview pages up on the screen here. I really love this introduction over to Armor on the page. This page really reminded me of the manga, the anime Fulikuli FLCL, with the character really having this kind of bump over on their forehead and kind of pulling it out with pliers, leading to this really interesting demon-like character here. I think the way this page is designed is also really, really striking with the definitive kind of top and bottom with so many disparate panels over on the page as well. On this next sequence, we finally get our in continuity, let's see if I can talk today, debut over with Maystorm in the issue. It looks like Armor was having a dream, and Maystorm wakes her up by handing her that interesting item that she ended up pulling out of her head here. Unfortunately, it looks like their teacher managed to see their kind of camaraderie and ends up getting them in trouble, saying, "You two come see me after class." And then over on these final page documents here, we have an outline of an X that once again seems to be teasing the Ultimate X-Men story scenario. And then we have a final piece of text here saying, "To be continued this March in Ultimate X-Men 1." I think these two pages are designed so incredibly well. I feel like there's more panels than maybe what you'd see with a Western creator working in the industry. Some of these character designs are also just really beautiful across Ultimate X-Men, and I just feel like there's so much ambition over in this title. Really love all the designs over for the main character of Armor here, especially with this jacket showing, a more aggressive maybe version of her personality too. We also have a couple more character designs over for Maystorm. Once again, taking these design elements of Storm and implementing them on a younger character, this is going over way better than I would have thought over in the tale. The way that Peach Momoko captures all these different looks for her, especially in a more like jovial personality, contrasted with, some more darker, more aggressive elements, I think is just quite stirring here. It feels like, both these characters in terms of Ultimate X-Men bring something unique and could really have an interesting new chapter in the Marvel Universe. Also, I felt like that Demon Days story that Peach Momoko was telling was a little bit more disconnected from Marvel's continuity. So having her work alongside, people like Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hill, I think should be really, really cool. I'm really hoping that all these characters will connect in their various comics. Well, I think the future is incredibly bright over for the Marvel Universe. I'm so thrilled to be excited for all three of these upcoming titles. I'm so happy that they're all slated to be released together. And I just feel like there's so much just incredible content that Marvel has in store, whether it be in the Ultimate Universe or in their main universe. Hope you enjoyed our deep dive into some of the Ultimate Marvel characters. Let's go ahead and preview some of our next news stories for the day. I want to be completely honest. There is not a lot of news right now. And I think we're going to have two articles to go ahead and close out our stream. And then we'll be back next week for a really epic stream as well. Let's go ahead. So, we previously talked about the most recent Timeless one shot from the previous year. Marvel is actually gearing up for a brand new Timeless one shot. We just got a new cover coming in over from Marvel. Let's go ahead and preview the epic brawl that's set to debut over in the upcoming Timeless story from Marvel. The last living Marvel superhero makes his final stand in In-hyuk Lee's Timeless #1 cover. This one shot will be the historic introduction of the Marvel Universe's last living superhero in the Marvel Universe's final threat, while setting up sagas that will take place in 2024. Yeah, so as we mentioned here in the last Timeless one shot, we really got the opportunity to see Kang go up against Murden and the Twilight Court. And really, what the Timeless one shots do is they kind of tease the next year of Marvel's publishing. This Timeless one shot, is written over from Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. It's drawn by Juan Cabal and features a look at some alternate versions of both Moon Knight and Luke Cage. Timeless, the special year-ending one-shot that sets the stage for upcoming stories in the Marvel Universe, is back for its third year this December. Written by Kelly and Lansing and drawn by Cabal, this finely crafted epic will reveal a devastating future born from the choices our heroes make today. This grim endpoint of the Marvel Universe is home to a single remaining hero, Power Man, and an ancient evil who's descended to ultimate power, Immortal Moon Knight. Right now, fans can glimpse their epic showdown in a new Timeless #1 variant cover by best-selling cover artist In-hyuk Lee. So when this Timeless one-shot was first announced, I actually drew a little bit of ire towards it, but now, as more time has passed and as I've read, the entire Captain America Sentinel of Liberty series from both Kelly and Lansing, I'm very interested to see what they have in store. One thing that is making me a little bit less excited than I could be for Timeless is the fact that I just have not connected to this creative team's Guardians of the Galaxy run. I really love the artwork from Kev Walker, but I think the depressing story elements have not made a good Guardians series. I am hoping that Lansing and Kelly will lend some of the great characterization that we got in that Captain America series over for these two interesting versions of these characters for the Timeless story. All of time and space is threatened by the rise of an ancient evil, the Immortal Moon Knight. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I wonder if the Immortal Moon Knight is going to be tied into like the Immortal Hulk or the Immortal Thor. A nightmare born of Stark Tech, the eternal machine and god of the moon, and now all of Earth bows before his overwhelming power. But one man stands against Khonshu's coming tide of chaos, Power Man, in the Marvel Universe's final living superhero. I think this also kind of opens up an interesting discussion with us too, because there's a lot happening with Moon Knight, right? Yesterday we covered the death of Moon Knight. That's currently going on in his main series. Plus we have a new Moon Knight comic book that's set to launch very, very soon over in the Marvel Universe too. And we literally just wrapped up looking at a bombastic Ultimate Black Panther news story that also featured some material over for the Moon Knight character too. And now this timeless one shot is bringing us a new version of Moon Knight. We've had a ton of different Moon Knight content, but if you ask me, that's okay. I think the noir situations that Moon Knight ends up getting him makes him such an endearing character, especially across all these different versions of the Marvel Universe. Who is Power Man, and how did he come to wield the unstable powers of the Sentry, Hulk, and Iron Fist? What dark, deeply personal conflict underpins the mind bending apocalypse? And at the end of the line, can the Marvel Universe ever truly be saved? This one is on sale December 27th. And once again, written by Kelly and Lansing, illustrated by Cabal. This cover is from Cale. No, this cover is from Inhyuk Lee. The main cover is from Cale New. We have one more paragraph coming in from Marvel, and that is the end of our news story. In addition to this breathtaking saga, Timeless #1 will once again contain shocking glimpses into the next year of Marvel storytelling, including the moments that kick off the inevitable chain of events that led to the end of the Age of Heroes. Check out Inhyuk Lee's cover and pre-order Timeless #1 at your local comic shop today. Very quickly, I want to say that I also have to hand it to the previous Timeless one-shot too, because I believe it did set up the character of Uncanny Spider-Man even before we saw him debut in earnest, like even way before Fall of X was even introduced to the Marvel Universe. So I'm really going to be keeping a close eye on Timeless to see what upcoming, Marvel publishing ramifications we're going to read about over in this series. Let's head into our final news story of the day. This is one that I feel absolutely terrible about because I haven't covered it in depth enough. And I know it's a series that is probably so good. Let's read a little bit about what Ram V has been cooking up over on Detective Comics. I haven't had the chance to comment on Ram V's Detective since I believe the series started. Maybe I checked in one more time. I have been mesmerized with what Ram V has been doing over on this series, really utilizing these very tense situations for the Orgam characters who claim ownership over to Gotham. The way that these kind of noir elements have lingered across this series have been depicted so artfully. I especially love all the covers in this book from Evan Cagle too. Let's discover what Ram V has in store for Detective Comics in this Adventures in Poor Taste article coming in from Chris Copland. Ram V is aware of, let's call it, pushback surrounding his ongoing Detective Comics run. Since debuting with issue 1062 in July 22nd, he's framed the ongoing story of Batman across the mysterious Orgam family as its own grandiose opera complete with acts like Nocturne. Let's just say not every fan is so open-minded and or cultured. When people talk about it, there's always this sense of, man, this feels epic, this feels grand, this feels huge, Ram V said during a recent Zoom call. And then I've had a history of this in all my comic books. There's always people who are suspicious of any change. I felt like there was a time recently at DC Comics where creators were lending stories to the Batman family that didn't really expand or push the genre of the character. I feel like for me, it's gotten a lot of, kind of tired out, worn out feelings over on the Batman ongoing series. And then, every once in a while we get a run like what James Tynion contributed over to the main Batman title that really, I think, just pushed the character in some brand new directions. I think Detective Comics under Ram V has really been one of those amazing runs. Just as he's done in those other circumstances, Ram V has eventually won over the most ardent of doubters. So, when we started out on Swamp Thing, I knew there was a very vocal group of people who said, this is not Alec Holland, this is not my Swamp Thing. So it was wondrous to see them change over 16 issues. They were like, actually, this is pretty good. And so I'm at that point in my Detective Comics journey where I'm starting to see people come around. So much of that stems from this notion that, despite a seemingly contentious engagement with readers, Ram V ultimately does what he does to present new ideas and perspectives. I really don't understand how you could have an intensely, negative reaction over to Detective Comics. I could definitely see maybe, some readers not having, that perspective and not being able to understand some of the subtlety in the issue. But, closing one of those books and actively saying this is a bad comic book, that absolutely blows my mind. I can't believe there's a single person saying that. I love that feedback because that means I'm pushing people out of their comfort zone. I'm not providing content, I'm providing story, and story is meant to evoke strong responses. And if I get strong responses, that's great. There's a certain joy in telling the story and telling it well. It's not just about what providing something novel, though. His work on tales like Swamp Thing and Detective Comics stems from a deeper tendency developed in another life. I'm also an ex chemical engineer who loves pulling things apart and putting them back together again, he said. There's a part of me that is obsessed with form and structure rather than function, and so I'm trying to see how I can play with form in comics, how I can play with the format. Rom V is a creator where, like, every single time I read a comic book, I have to read it like two or three times. There's always some interesting, like, structural piece that I overlooked. There's always some, like, really interesting character interaction hinting at something darker than I even anticipated. I think The Vigil is such an amazing comic book series. Once again, I feel guilty. I haven't had the opportunity to catch up over with that book, but if you've never read a Rom V comic, I really encourage you to do so. He's just so creative in a lot of his ideas and in terms of the execution here. He added, and that has actually been something that has hopefully presented itself across my work, whether it was going to do the abstract, full page splash pages in Swamp Thing. I don't think that's been done since Alan Moore did the idea back in his run. Whether that's the Two-Face issue in this run or coming into my personal work, the recipes and rare flavors. I've always been someone who's enjoyed pushing the form, but not in service to the narrative. Still, it's not like he's transformed Batman into a robot ninja or made him afraid of the dark. Instead, the works of Rom V and various artists across this Detective Comics run, including Raphael Albuquerque, Yvonne Hayes, Stefano Raphael, has been rather direct, but decidedly more important in the grander, canon of the Bat. Rom V has really been spoiled with the runs over on his Detective Comics work. Raphael Albuquerque, Yvonne Hayes, and Stefano Raphael. Even Stefano Raphael, really strong artist over at DC. It feels like he's gotten some of the very best artists the publisher has. At the very beginning, when I talked to Jessica Chen, who was the commissioning editor on the project at the time, I said I wanted to do something that was different from this kind of broad perception of what a Batman story needs to be that we had at the time. In my understanding, in most media, Batman was portrayed as either this superhero undertaking street level crime and detective stories, or this kind of immensely powerful, gadgeted, technology driven, almost super soldier. While I appreciated stories in that vein, the stories I really responded to as a reader and as a viewer of the animated show were stories in which Batman was fallible, human, a tragic character driven by a need to be more than what he could possibly be. And I wanted to bring that aesthetic back to Batman stories, if you will. So I think I've read a lot of the Gotham Nocturne part of the Detective Comics run. I haven't ventured into the outlaw storytelling yet. But one thing I can say, and one thing I've really seen Rom V approach in some of his run, are those actual, like, street level character interactions with Batman as Bruce Wayne and people like the Organs. Doing those storylines and really setting those personal stakes helps readers build up, some of the tension and conflict in their mind. I feel like one other piece of media that did that just so incredibly well was actually the Arrow television series. The way that Oliver Queen, like, built up a relationship over with the character of Deathstroke, and the way that status quo just kind of blew up in his face was so human and so kind of visceral. And the way that we saw all the lead up to that made it just so dark when that storyline kind of, pulled out the rug underneath readers. And I think that this Detective Comics series also has a lot of that kind of underpinning in the background of the story while levying a really strong supernatural, like physical threat towards Batman too. While Ramvi is decidedly trying to break new ground, he's still operating in some decidedly familiar territory. And yeah, that's true. Just like we mentioned with that Arrow television series, there have been other stories that do like long term storytelling, with characters interacting as humans too. We've had some of that in a lot of the Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb stories that came out, and the Denny O'Neil Batman was a bit of a tragic character, and we've seen glimpses and pieces of it in Arkham Asylum or Year One. So I was drawing from those influences, and the things I wanted to add to it was my love of the theatricality of the grand gothic undertones of Batman, which had only ever been undertones. I wanted to bring this to the fore a little bit, so in all those senses, I feel like the story so far has been successful in doing that. Yes, I think another piece of Batman media that has done a great job instilling so many different themes to the surface of the character is actually the Batman animated cartoon. That Batman cartoon just had all these like interesting gothic noir elements that really, I think, taught like a new generation of people how to understand some of the underpinnings with the Batman character. Another thing I wanted to comment on about this greater story of the Orghems and the Asmer demons over in this Batman Detective Comics run is that I feel like this book has almost been more expansive with the main threat than the Court of Owls series. I love the lead up in the big fight between Batman and the Court of Owls, but the way that this book is fleshed out, the characterization with the Orghems, I think, has even like transcended to almost a level beyond that. Again, I really like all these Batman stories, but I think it's very interesting to juxtapose and compare them as they're being released. I also do not think there is nearly enough love in the world of recent Batman comics for the highs that James Tynion reached over in the Fear State storyline. I think his Batman run is an absolute classic and should be regarded as such. Also, let's see, we had one more really epic recent Batman run that I wanted to shout out. That was Joshua Williams' contribution over to the comic book too. Chip Zdarsky's been lending just some really great writing and scripts over to his main series as well. There's so much ridiculously great Batman content over at DC right now. It's insane. As Ramvi explained, these heroes don't become iconic without this kind of enthusiastic but efficient exploration of what makes them proper heroes. I think part of the reason these characters have such longevity in popular culture is because they're icons, they're iconic characters, and the very nature of longevity means that these things have to be interrogated and questioned, and they must evolve with societies, with people over time. And as a writer, your job, successful or not, is to push and prod and pull at these iconic characters. If you will, I wanted to do a story that was pushing and prodding at the choice of being Batman. Because, as part of this whole new iconic status, characters like Batman must never be stagnant as they speak to increasingly new and different generations. Is that a quote from him? I am really happy to hear that context given for the Batman property. I feel like there's a lot of creators who go into Batman with just no ambition. What being Batman in the 60s was very different from being Batman in the 80s was very different from being Batman in the 90s, said Ramvi. I suppose my question is like, okay, what's Batman in 2023? Who is Batman in 23 or 24? I think people forget when I say I love Batman as a character, I'm not talking about Bob Kane and Bill Finger's Batman or the Adam West Batman. Maybe I'm talking about Tim Burton's. I'm certainly talking about Year One's Batman and Darwin Cook's Batman and Tim Sale. And those are my iconic takes on the character. If someone was going to read this 20 years down the line, will the character speak to them the way Year One or Long Halloween spoke to me? And so I feel like every writer's job is to push and prod and strip down and interrogate the icon in some interesting way. I hate it when creators enter like really big stories with characters and they don't have like a meta narrative to say in terms of the character. You know, they don't have something interesting to say about the inherent premise of the character that makes their run stand out from someone else's. Ultimately, Ram V had an interesting enough observation, and one that perhaps speaks to the core of Batman, our continued interest and the character's role in this latest Detective Comics run. This ties into my theory on why Batman and Superman have evolved to be outside of the circumstantial stuff. Like, why have they evolved to be these kind of great philosophical pillars of the DC universe? Yeah, I mean, Superman and Batman feel like icons to the publisher, even as opposed to just mere characters. If, let's see, I feel like if you distill the argument down to its bones, Superman is an alien, not a human, whose greatest desire and superpower is rooted in the idea that he wants so badly to fit in and be human. On that note, if you then look at Batman as a mirror to that, Batman is a character who's merely human, and yet his entire life following that incident with his parents has been devoted to the idea, if I can do more, if I can be more, I can exist beyond the bounds of being an ordinary human. What toll does that take on you? What does that drive you to become as a character? Those are the broader questions that we're dealing with here. And there'll be even more questions as we head into this week's issue 1076, which kicks off the 5-part bi-weekly Outlaw. And in keeping with the operatic gimmick, as it were, Ram V has dubbed this new arc an intermezzo. I love the idea that in an opera you have an intermission and it serves two functions. You're allowed to let the gravity of the first and second act sink in, but also because the Nocturne run in particular is so character focused. We've not had a chance to interrogate things like, what does this effect have on everyone around this iconic character? All right, I don't think we're going to read this full story, but I am going to read some of the final paragraphs here, and then we're going to go ahead and close out our stream today. This story is engaging, and the narrative is engaging in its own installments, but you don't necessarily see the big picture until you get to that point where you go, oh, that's what this is all about, he said. I often say that if everyone universally loves your work, you're maybe not trying hard enough. And I shamelessly steal that quote from Brian Azzarello, who said it to me once when he was downtown in London. So I'm very much a prescriber to that idea, what makes people uncomfortable and makes them deal with change. All right, well, I sincerely hope you enjoyed our weekend of streams here. I think that is all the news stories that we have in store for today. Indeed. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed really digging into the new formation of the Ultimate Universe with us. I hope you liked our deep dive over on Ram V's Detective Comics. We also got a chance to preview those new plot implications over for the upcoming Thanos series. Plus, learning a little bit more about Daredevil operating as Elektra in the gang war, I think was very, very interesting. I want to thank you so much for coming to our stream today. I hope you had a ton of fun. Let's see. So over this week on Tuesday, we're going to have a brand new DC Comics video. We're going to be covering the Birds of Prey in a lot of depth. I'm very, very excited about that upcoming issue. Elsewhere, we're going to have coverage over on books like Thanos. And I'm not sure what else we have in store for Marvel, but rest assured, I'm incredibly excited, and I am thrilled to bring you some brand new comic book reviews. Plus, we will continue our streams next weekend. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next week to continue the fun here. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.